Warning: this video contains mentions of sexual assault and other sensitive subjects. If you are sensitive to this type of material, click off the video now. Be safe out there, everyone. Bring protection with you. Bring a friend if you need to. The world is a terrible place sometimes, but we can prevent those monsters from getting what they want. I'm sorry for anybody who's ever experienced anything close to what you hear in this video, and just know that you are not alone. And there are people out there that you can talk to and confide in to help you. Thank you.
This happened around 2004, when I was in my mid-20s, and my sister, the unfortunate main character in this story, had just turned 21. At the time, she and her boyfriend lived with my fiancé and I. On weekends, we went out to one of the two bars that had karaoke, air hockey, etc. This particular night, we were at the bar further out from where we lived in the city, a good half an hour by car. Everyone was having drinks, socializing with people we knew, singing karaoke, and nothing out of the ordinary really. Except that night my sister had started hanging out with these two older ladies who had a liquor store in their purses. And they were quite sharing, although I didn't know it at the time. As she tended to drink a lot more than I did, that was a score for her. Less money spent on drinks, but she ended up far more hammered than usual. Towards the end of the night, around 1:45, she was really drunk. The aforementioned fiancé, my sister's boyfriend, and I were in a heated air hockey game, planning to leave as soon as it was over. She walked up to us and said she was going to smoke a cigarette outside until we were done. About 5 minutes later, we paid our tab and walked out, but she wasn't on the porch area where most of the smokers congregated at. Okay, weird, but not quite alarming. At least, not yet. We went out back of the bar to check for her, inside, in the restroom, and the parking lot as well. It is notable that this particular bar was in a business park, so there were multiple businesses that were closed, as well as the Mexican restaurant next door that had just closed as well. We searched, asked everyone that knew us and those who didn't if they had seen her. No one had. I asked the co-workers from the restaurant that were sitting outside as well. They seemed nervous when telling me they hadn't seen her, but I didn't really think on that much until later. By then, I was in full-on panic after trying to call her cell phone about 15 times only to have it go to voicemail. Being a bit inebriated myself, I started searching for her. I went as far as to take off my heels and start running down the highway to search for her. Honestly, there had been many times where she would start walking home in the past, though never from this place, as it was so far away from where we lived. The fiancé and her boyfriend thought we should go to the house to see if she got someone to bring her home. It seemed unlikely, but not unheard of. We get home, and she's nowhere to be found. Just as we were about to head back and I was going to phone the police, I received a call from the police department on my phone. They indicated that they had my sister and there had been an incident, and I needed to get down there right away. We rushed to the PD, where we were then taken into a room with my sister. Her face was red from obvious crying, and bruises were starting to show on her arms and chest. She said that when she told us she was going outside, she thought we said we were leaving, so she walked to the car. After a few minutes being drunk and tired, she sat down up against it to wait. A van pulled up, and a young man was asking her directions to somewhere. She walked closer to try to explain, when suddenly the back door flew open, and two other men grabbed her and then threw her in, then taking off. They were rough with her, hitting her a few times while holding her down, saying they only wanted money. They snatched her purse from her, breaking the straps, and searched it, quite haphazardly as they didn't find the $30 she had in it. After driving around a bit speaking in Spanish and she couldn't understand, they pulled out a gun. Making sure she saw it, then put a bandana around her eyes, then telling her they'd let her go. She was driven to some woods by a neighborhood she didn't know. The door was opened and they pushed her out, telling her to run and that if she took off the blindfold or happened to turn around, they'd shoot her. Well, she ran and ran. Eventually, she did take off the blindfold, and she came to the first door that she saw, beating on it and screaming for help. The police were called and she was picked up, and now we're back to my being there, hearing what I feared had happened. We filed a report. The police did a search, and they did locate the bandana that she ripped off, but she was so intoxicated and terrified, she wasn't able to give a clear description of the van other than it being white, as well as the 3 occupants other than being young Mexican men. The investigation didn't turn anything up, as no cameras caught any of this. Hell, we even had detectives in our home who said to us, "Look, we need the truth. If you got drunk and just went home with someone and didn't want your boyfriend to find out, we will file charges on you." Aside from the bruises, broken person, or trauma, there wasn't anything concrete that they could go on. That was unpleasant. I'm still fairly convinced that someone at the restaurant knew something given their suspicious behaviors when I asked about her, but the police were never able to find that link. All said and done, the guys were never found. Eventually, we just moved on in different states. It's now just a story in our lives. It still makes me sick thinking of what could have happened, but thankfully didn't. Be safe out there. And to the badly organized trio who kidnapped my adult sister, let's never meet.
This is something that was super traumatic for me, but was never discussed again in my household. I was talking with my mom about it the other night, and she still didn't say much. Thought I would share my thoughts with you all. When I was 13, I got a Dell desktop for school. The internet was fairly new for me back in 2003. AOL and MySpace, Yahoo Messenger, AOL chat rooms. 16F Cali, anyone? AOL chat rooms was where I went. I was a shy, overweight kid back then, still shy to this day, but online I could be anyone. I could say anything. It was amazing. I discovered so many things when I got the internet. If I could be anyone, so could someone else. Thus is how I met one 27-year-old man. One night I logged on. The AOL dial-up sound still makes me feel uneasy. I was sitting in my cold, dark kitchen. The computer was here so I could be monitored. It was just me and my mom, though, and she was always working, so no one was ever really monitoring me. Plus, she had no idea how to use a computer, so I got away with a lot. I was bored, so I hopped into an AOL chat room, lurked for a bit, and then 15 and F here. I was really 13, but saying I was 15 made me feel so much more mature. Private message incoming. "Hey, my name is Rob. Where are you from?" And that's how it got started. I told him where I was from, that I was in high school, which wasn't a lie. My school was from 7th to 12th grade. "You?" 19 male, New York. Oh man, it was so cool to be talking to an older guy. And boy was he cute. Honestly, I don't really remember much. Maybe I blanked it out, maybe my memory is just shot. I do remember emails back and forth, the occasional phone call. I remember finding out he was talking to another girl, and I wanted to break things off. But he begged and pleaded until I caved. Then the let's meet. I was nervous. He had never asked for a pic. He had never really asked for much from me. Just the emails back and forth. A phone call a day. But somehow he made me feel safe. Made me feel wanted. Cared for. He drove from New York to West Virginia in one day. My mom worked right beside my house, so he parked about a quarter mile away and took the back alley to enter my house. My friend was with me when he showed up, but was scared when she saw him and ran out the back door. I maybe should have taken a hint from that, but I just stood on the back porch with my head down. Was given a hug as he led me inside. Not 5 minutes after being there, sitting on the couch, did he move things further. Then further even into my bedroom. I won't get into the details on what happened next. I assume most can guess. After that, he left, with instructions to get in his car after I got off the school bus, and that we'll go on a date. I had no idea where he was staying. I lived extremely far into the country, an hour's drive from the closest hotel. The next day I got ready for school. I rode the bus for the 45-minute drive, and as soon as I hop off into the school parking lot, I get directly into his car. No one noticed, no one said anything. We drove around, never went on a date. He just finds different places to park so that he can use me. I notice a photo of another young girl, 15 or 16, in the visor of his car. I question him. Believe when he tells me that it's his cousin. Believe when I question why his hairline is receding so much. Believe him when he tells me I can't see his driver's license because he left it in the hotel. Believed him when he said he loved me. I get dropped back off at school. Super sad that he was going back home. With promises he will call. Again, everything feels fuzzy. I can't remember many emotions from this time. I do remember that a few days later my mom says she found out I skipped school with a man, that I was never to see him again. And that was that. I do remember sending an email. I do remember a late night phone call. I do remember saying, I wish I could just live with you. I remember him suggesting to come get me. I remember saying okay. And days later, by the time he made the drive again, I was feeling iffy about leaving my mom. I loved her. After all, I didn't think things through. I didn't put much thought into anything, really. I packed a few clothes in my suitcase. Forget all the underwear. That is one of my sharpest memories. I felt bad that he drove 8 hours to get me, so I left in the middle of the night. I got in the car to him and his cousin. He got in the back seat with me and proceeded to have sex with me while his cousin drove. Then he got back in the front seat. This happened a few times between my home and his. The drive took forever. I had nothing to drink, was offered nothing when they got something. They stopped to nap at a rest stop and I attempted to call my mom, which was disabled on her phone. I dug around for some change to get something to drink, but couldn't afford anything in the convenience store, so I drank out of the truck stop sink. Hours later, we park a block away from his house while he runs in to get something. I'm sitting in the back seat, waking up from a nap when around 8 or so men and women in black suits surround the car, screaming for us to get out with our hands up. My first thought is shit. First 10 minutes in New York and I'm already getting robbed. I'm terrified. I get out and a man pulls me over to the curb while the other officers force his cousin onto the ground. All the while they are asking my name and age, telling me to tell his cousin my age. I'm put in the back of an unmarked car, driven to the NYPD, past reporters, cameras, and news trucks, snuck into the back of the station, when I see Rob in handcuffs for the last time. And for in-love 14-year-old me, this is devastating. I'm taken to a room and questioned for hours, and then I'm taken to the hospital, and then a hotel where a nice woman brings me Taco Bell, and stays with me as I fall asleep. The next day, 2 FBI officers escort me home on a plane, where I get off and where I'm greeted by police officers, my mother, and a horde of news reporters. I later found out that when my mom reported me missing, the police didn't want to do much. They didn't even take the picture of me. She had his license plate number. She remembered seeing his car parked by the road that first meeting. She took note since it was an out-of-state care. Thanks to her being vigilant, I do find this is the only reason I am alive today. The police said they would look into it, but that wasn't enough for my mom. She contacted a family friend who in turn contacted the governor of West Virginia, who in turn made the police look further into it. After they ran the license number, looked into the man, and found out who he was, that's when they issued an Amber Alert, noting that I was in extreme danger. My cousin told my mom that he looked at Rob's rap sheet, and it was a mile long, but wouldn't tell my mother what was on it, for fear of scaring her more. I never went to court, I never went to any hearings, but I did fall into a horrible depression. My friends' parents wouldn't let them hang out with me. People spray-painted slut on my locker at school. I had no friends, but most of all I thought a man was in prison for loving me. When I learned he got sentenced to 10 years in prison, which he served every year of, I became deeply troubled. I was in and out of mental hospitals for self-harm for years, on a slew of depression medication. Psychiatrists never talked to me about anything. I had to process it all myself. My teenage years were better, though. I transferred schools, made best friends, graduated, but still in the back of my mind I felt that I was the reason a man lost 10 years of his life. Till I was told he was let out of prison. A couple of years after he was out, I contacted him on Facebook. At the time I was around 24 or 25. He told me that if I ever contacted him again, he would kill both me and my mother. That he still knows where I live. I had no idea what he planned to do with me. My mom still says selling me to a sex trafficker. I was told that he had other girls my age he was talking to. Some good things happened because of my kidnapping. Schools all over my state started internet safety education classes. Kids were taught safety. Parents were taught how to keep kids safe. No other girls were taken by this man. So, to the man who ruined so many years of my life, I'm 29 now. I'm happy, healthy, and I have zero remorse that you are now listed as a level 3 sex offender and that you were in prison for so many years.